Fanboy Friday with Mark Walters and Robert Miguel.
Coyote Country 104.9.
Friday morning at 8:30, checking in from Dallas, Texas, professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film critic at BigFanboy.com, and the show director at the upcoming Dallas Comic Show, the one and only Mark Walters, everybody. Golf clap, golf clap. How you doing, man?
What's up, my man?
Long time no see, man. I know it's been crazy. I was out of town, you were out of town, then we were both out of town, and it's like, wow, crazy. But it's good to hear your voice, man. I miss you. I love you, man.
It's definitely, like you said, like we were talking about earlier, it's that time of year where like a lot of people are traveling, and so I'm trying to get in, a couple of back-to-back trips, but always glad to fit this in where I can because like you said, it's been too long. We gotta get back to it.
Well, we've missed a few big ones since we've had our break, so I know the big one last week was The Incredibles. You did do a review on that, and a few people I'm sure haven't seen it yet, so give us the word on the brand new Disney Pixar film, The Incredibles 2.
Sure. Well, this is, obviously a follow-up that has been many, many years in the making. I think, what was it, like 14 years it took for them to make a sequel after all the original came out all those years ago. And I'm a big fan of the original movie. I think the original movie is terrific. I think a lot of people, when it came out, they thought this is like one of the best comic book movies ever made, even though it's not based on a comic book. It just kind of shows the strengths of Brad Bird, the writer and director of the film. Brad Bird, of course, previous to Incredibles, gave us, 5 years prior to that, gave us The Iron Giant. So clearly Brad Bird knows what he's doing when it comes to, kind of pop culture and appealing to the child in all of us and whatnot. And so I was a big fan of the original movie. And I think, there's certainly kind of that cautionary feeling that you have when they decide that they're finally going to make a sequel to something, especially when it's so many years later,
right,
as to whether or not it's going to hold up or even come close to matching the quality of the original.
Or even be relevant anymore.
Yeah, I was very happy to see that Incredibles 2, in a lot of ways, it kind of feels like we never left these guys. I mean, like, it plays out in a very familiar type of way, and it actually picks up at the beginning of the movie exactly where the first movie left off. Like, the ending of the first movie is the opening scene of this new movie, and so it was kind of in a way almost like the filmmakers were saying, this is going to feel like a companion piece and not just a sequel. And I appreciated that. I thought they did a good job with that, and sort of playing off the motifs that the first film set up. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of action, a lot of good, exciting scenes to kind of keep things moving. It is a little bit of a long movie. It's right at 2 hours. For a kids' animated film, that's risky sometimes, but it's just loaded full of fun stuff. I think my only complaint, if I had to have any sort of complaint, is a twofold thing. And one is, I thought the villain, the storyline with the villain of the movie is a little bit convoluted, and I don't know that kids would really quite get it.
Uh-huh.
But, it serves the purpose of the film well. That's another thing that, like, that first movie did so well. The villain in the first movie was so great, and in this movie it just didn't quite live up to that same quality. And then the other thing is that the first movie, there's a really great sort of family, personal undertone in that first movie, and kind of the importance of family and just there's a lot of heart to that first movie. There's some emotional beats that really work. Even to this day, when I watch that film, I get a little bit choked up.
Uh-huh.
And in this movie, there just isn't any of that.
Right.
It's just not there. And it's not that the movie doesn't work. The movie's great, but it just feels like it's kind of missing some of that charm that the first movie had, or at least missing some of the emotional beats. But man, it's a lot of fun. It's a really fun sequel, and I think that, considering the fact it's been 14 years, it could have gone so many other different directions, and they did a great job with it.
I totally agree. I took my kid to see it last weekend, and we both enjoyed it, but you're right. I thought the first one certainly had a lot more heart. Very cool. Yeah. So anyway, that's Incredibles 2, Disney Pixar's newest thing, out in theaters right now. We also missed Ocean's 8. Did you get to see that one?
I did. It's funny. I had sent one of my writers to go watch that, but then my mom actually really wanted to see that movie because let's face it, she likes everybody in the movie.
That basically. Is a great female cast. Yeah.
So I took her to see it over the weekend, and I enjoyed it for what it was. I mean, the thing that kind of bothers me about that movie is that they've been talking about doing this film for many, many years. They've been talking about the concept behind it, and having it sort of play off those Ocean's 11 films and whatnot. And the Ocean's 11 films for me are kind of hit or miss. Like, I liked the first one. The second one I really did not like.
Right.
And honestly, I don't even remember the third one. But
well, I remember the third one recovered a little bit. I remember hating the second one and then thinking, oh, the third one came back around, but I don't remember much of it either.
Well, the second one suffers from that absolutely ludicrous storyline of the Julia Roberts character passing herself off as Julia Roberts, and it was just kind of like, what? What are you guys trying to do? I mean, it was so just kind of completely out there and weird, and I didn't really care for it.
It's like a being John Malkovich kind of thing going on there.
Yeah, it was very, very bizarre, and so I wasn't a big fan of that second movie. But the third movie, I think, like you said, I seem to remember it kind of redeeming itself. My only real problem with Ocean's 8, because it's a fun movie and all the actresses are good and everything. The biggest problem I have with it is that you have these characters that are all supposed to be cons. They're all supposed to be people who they specialize in conning people. They specialize in ripping people off. And I just felt like it was lazy writing that you're going to put all these women together and no one's going to try to screw the other one over. Like, no one's going to take an opportunity to try to maybe, like, double-cross.
Oh.
I mean, there was no tension in the movie at all. There was never even a hint that something might go wrong or that things weren't going to work out. It's just, it's one of those things that you go to see it, and by the time you get to the end of it, you just kind of feel like, okay, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. There's really nothing to it that surprised me, and I just kind of felt like that was a bit of a missed opportunity. I think they could have done something interesting or fresh with it, especially the fact that, this is like the all-female version of the story that we know so well. Why not try to do something new and interesting with it? And I felt like instead we just got a very by-the-numbers heist movie that looks like every other heist movie we've ever seen. And so I was a little let down. I really was kind of hoping for more. And that's not to say that it's not entertaining or that it's not fun. It is. I just kind of feel like Hollywood nowadays, a lot of times with these films, they end up playing it a little bit too safe.
Well, that's Ocean's 8. That's the word from Mark Walters, rated PG-13 in theaters now. And finally, real quick, before I let you go, I know you have not personally screened it since you were on vacation, but Jurassic World 2 comes out this weekend, and you did have a review. You already have a review posted on BigFanboy.com. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I sent one of my writers, Patrick Hendrickson, went and saw this, and we talked a little bit about it. I'm going to actually go see it next week because they're opening up a brand new Alamo Draft House in Denton, and I'm going to go tour that facility and get to see it. I'll see it then. So I'll get to see it with all the regular people. But no, I from my understanding and from a lot of people I've talked to, it's good, it's entertaining, it is an improvement on the last one. I think I felt about Jurassic World the way a lot of people felt about Jurassic World, which was it just kind of feels like a thinly veiled remake of the first movie, and that's not to say that that's not a smart idea or whatever. I mean, obviously that worked for The Force Awakens, it worked for Creed. We've seen a lot of these movies when they're kind of reviving franchises where they're basically remaking the film that we all know and love. And obviously it works because they're making a crap load of money in the box office by doing it. But my understanding is that this new one, Fallen Kingdom, that it does try to go into some interesting territory and whatnot. There's a lot of great action cues. I think the first hour, from what I've heard, is really pretty solid. Everybody I've talked to that has seen it has said that the second hour is where it starts to kind of lose steam. Like they kind of go into some silly, not silly, but maybe less than awesome story points, and the villains are really kind of ham-fisted and just not very well developed. And it's a shame because I really feel like, this is a franchise and this is a concept of the story that there's a lot of things you could do with this. There's a lot of directions you could go with it. And I guess they just kind of went, for the basic, ordinary type of story motifs. I don't know. I'm anxious to see it for myself and see how it plays. But I, from my understanding, it doesn't really offer anything terribly new. It's just kind of, if you like those movies, you'll probably enjoy it just like all the other ones.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. Chris Pratt is so charming and he seems like just such a cool guy. I just enjoy him in everything he does. And, of course, Dallas Bryce Howard, she's just so beautiful and talented. I kind of feel like that's going to be, for me, I'm just going to enjoy it just from the people on the screen and just seeing a lot of action. So, I try not to to judge it too hard anyway. So anyway, Jurassic World 2, rated PG-13, out in theaters this weekend. So anything else you got for us before we wrap this up, man?
Yeah, one or two things. I will say I agree with you about the Chris Pratt thing. I think Chris Pratt is very charming and very likable. And one of the things that Patrick, who wrote the review that's on my site, mentioned in his review was the fact that, really we've kind of reached a point where Chris Pratt is just playing Chris Pratt.
Right.
He's in.
And we're fine with it.
He's so darn likable and it's so charming that you don't care. And I do kind of wonder, though, how many years of that he's got left in him. Like, how much longer can he get away with that? But, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I mean, sometimes having a guy like that in the movie that is likable and fun and that you want to watch, sometimes that's all it takes. No, I just wanted to mention a couple more quick things. So we did post a couple of trailers. There's a new trailer for Creed 2, which looks really, really good.
Awesome.
There's a trailer for the new Robert Zemeckis movie, Welcome to Marwen. A trailer for a very interesting film called Searching that plays out through like webcams and digital devices and whatnot, which played at Sundance earlier this year and got incredible reviews. It stars John Cho, and so we got a review up our trailer up for that. So we got a lot of like cool trailers and things up that you guys can check out at bigfanboy.com. And I did want to ask you what your thoughts were on the whole Disney buying out Fox deal. Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
Now, who did they buy out? Because I don't think I heard about this yet. Who did they buy?
So for the last couple of months, Disney and Comcast have been basically fighting each other, putting in competing bids over buying out 20th Century Fox.
Oh, no, I did see something about that. So that happened.
So as of this week, it looks as if Fox has accepted Disney's bid, and Disney is now going to buy out Fox. Now, it still has to go through, they still have to get the approval of the shareholders, and then the Justice Department has to approve the buyout. But if it all goes through, that means that Disney will not only own Star Wars, they will also own Die Hard, Alien, Avatar, X-Men, Fantastic Four, all those big 20th century, Planet of the Apes, all the big 20th Century Fox properties will now be under the control of Disney.
Wow.
And it should be interesting to see what happens with that, because one of the things that certain people have been talking about is, well, how is Disney going to release like an Alien or a Predator movie? How is Disney going to release a Die Hard movie? And I think what we may see is the return of their Touchstone brand, which is a brand that you and I know pretty well, because back in the 90s it was used quite a bit, but it sort of went away. And I wonder if maybe they're going to bring that back now so they can release some of these more adult-themed type movies.
You know, that's an interesting thing. I if you would have asked me what I feel about it 2 or 3 years ago, I'd have been like, heck yeah, Disney's making great decisions. But lately, I don't have that same confidence in them, just for a various number of reasons. So I can't say I'm fully on board, but at the same time, man, they've got really great, talented people with the numbers and, the productions. So, I'm willing to, I'm not going to be a hater about it, but like I said, I would have had way more faith in that transaction 2-3 years ago.
It does sort of make you wonder, though. Like, I mean, when a company like Disney, they own Star Wars, they own Marvel, now they own, 20th Century Fox potentially. Certain other movie studios like Universal seem to be, not doing great. So what happens if Disney buys Universal? What happens if Disney buys Paramount?
Yeah, the whole monopoly, the homogenization of everything, that's something we do have to worry about, to where every movie starts looking the same.
It just sort of begs the question of what would that end up being if, like, say, 5 or 10 years from now, Disney owned every major movie studio. What would the end result be? And I don't know. I do think that that's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But I guess ultimately it all depends on how they co-manage those properties, because you got to think, if they buy out a company like Fox, they're not just going to fire all the Fox executives.
Right.
They're going to keep a lot of those people around to keep things running. But it does beg the question of what is the end game here? So I just thought it was a very interesting little piece of news that came out this week, and I know certain people have not necessarily been keeping up with it, but that's a pretty big purchase.
That is huge. Yeah, something definitely we want to keep our eye on for sure.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks a lot, Mark. Once again, let's give it up to professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film critic at bigfanboy.com, and the show director at Dallas Comic Show, the long-awaited return of the one and only Mark Walters. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Robert.
Fanboy Friday with Mark Walters and Robert Miguel.
Coyote Country 104.9.